The map was printed on cheap paper, the kind that curled at the edges and tore if you looked at it funny. Erik Kael had found it in a dusty stack of declassified files at the National Archives, wedged between a Cold War civil defense pamphlet and a 1982 emergency evacuation plan for rural Idaho. It was labeled Western Interior Defense Grid Draft 1967, and in the bottom right corner, someone had scribbled not for operational use in faded red ink, but it had lines and dots, and Erik had always been good with dots. He stood now at the side of a gravel road somewhere in Utah, the sun already high and hot, his backpack open on the hood of his rented SUV. The map flapped in the wind, and he held it down with a half-eaten protein bar. "All right," he muttered, tracing a path with a finger. "If I'm here and that old relay tower is still standing then, that ridge line should be." He looked up. The ridge was there, jagged and dry, its base dotted with scrub brush and stone, just as the map said. What the map didn't say was why a Cold War-era draft would mark the area with a small black X and label it Observation Node 7 Do Not Approach. But Erik had been bored, and bored government contractors with clearances and too much time in the archives were dangerous. He packed the map away, locked the SUV, and started walking. The hike was rough but not impossible. He kept pace, checking the map every half-mile. He crossed an old fence line, the type with rusted posts and wire that sagged like it had given up on its job. Another mile in, he stopped. There was a hill, taller than the rest. It wasn't on the map, and it was too smooth, too symmetrical. He crouched and ran his hand over the dry soil, loose gravel but beneath it concrete. "Bingo," Erik said aloud. He circled the hill. After 20 minutes, he found it, a narrow seam in the ground, barely visible. He pulled out a small crowbar from his pack, wedged it into the seam, and leaned. It didn't budge. "Not that easy," he grunted. He paced away, scanned the ground, and spotted a small antenna sticking out of a rock. It was disguised, but not well. He walked over and tugged. Nothing. Then he noticed the base had a small panel. He popped it open. Inside, a keypad and a retinal scanner. "No way this still works," he muttered. He tapped the keypad. Nothing. Then a faint hum. The panel lit up. Erik stepped back. The ground beneath the antenna vibrated slightly. Then the seam he'd found hissed. A section of dirt and stone began to slide aside, revealing a ramp descending into darkness. "Okay," Erik said slowly. "So that's a thing." He took out his flashlight and started down. The ramp went deep, far deeper than any old Cold War bunker should. The air grew cooler. After 5 minutes, the slope leveled out into a corridor. The walls were smooth metal, brushed and seamless. Definitely not 1967. He moved forward. After 20 feet, the corridor opened into a circular room. Screens lined the walls, though they were dark. In the center stood a pedestal with a triangular console. Erik approached, careful not to touch anything. A soft chime echoed, then a voice. "Unauthorized presence detected." "Identify." Erik froze. Erik Kael, civilian, I found a map." Silence. Then a different voice, distorted, filtered. "You are not cleared for this facility. You will surrender and await containment." A panel on the far wall slid open. Something stepped through, tall, thin, not human. Erik backed up. "Whoa, okay, I didn't mean to." The being raised a device. A beam of light swept over him. Organic, human, no implants, no known affiliations. Erik blinked. "Wait, you scanned me for?" "What cybernetics?" The being spoke again, this time more curious than hostile. "You located this node using a map?" Erik nodded slowly. "Yeah, found it in some old files. I thought it was a joke." The being tilted its head slightly. "No human has ever approached this site without advanced detection systems. You used a paper map." "Yep." More silence. Then the being turned and gestured. "Follow." Erik hesitated, then did. The corridor beyond was longer. Lights flickered on as they walked. He saw rooms behind glass walls, labs, storage, something that looked like a stasis chamber. Inside one, a small drone hovered, dormant. Inside another, a rack of black cylindrical objects sat humming faintly. They stopped at a room with a wide window. The being turned. "You are now classified as an anomalous variable. You will be interviewed." "Look, I didn't mean to." The door opened. A second being entered, shorter, blue skin. 4 eyes. It carried a long tablet. You breached a facility hidden from global intelligence agencies using a civilian method. Explain. Erik shrugged. I'm good with patterns. The map had inconsistencies. That hill, it wasn't marked. Everything else was. So I guessed it was hiding something. The being blinked all 4 eyes. You guessed. Well, educated guess, a pause. Then the 2 beings exchanged a look. The taller one turned to him. Your method is inefficient yet effective. This cannot be ignored. I wasn't trying to find aliens, Erik said. I thought it was an old missile site or something. The shorter one lowered the tablet. This base houses diplomatic and observational assets. It is not intended for contact. Okay, can I go? No, Erik sighed. Didn't think so. They led him to a smaller room, metal walls, a cot, a sink, a screen embedded in the wall, the door sealed with a soft hiss. He sat on the cot, leaned back, and muttered, next time maybe stick to museums. Hours passed. The screen flickered on. A new face. Human, female. Early 40s, sharp eyes. I'm Winna Lard. You're Erik Kael. Yeah, you found the base using a declassified map. Yes. No satellite, no AI, no predictive modeling. Nope, just me and a snack bar. Wynn leaned forward. Do you realize what you've done? Stumbled into something I shouldn't have? You breached a joint interstellar covert site by accident. That's not supposed to be possible. I'm getting that a lot, she exhaled. You're not in danger, but you are a problem. Comforting. Wynn studied him. This base is protected by cloaking technology, biometric filters, and a full-spectrum jamming field, and you found it before lunch. Erik raised both hands. Look, if you want to wipe my memory, go ahead. I've seen enough sci-fi to know how this ends. We're not wiping anything. But we are keeping you here for now. For how long? Until we figure out if you're a threat or just incredibly lucky. Erik leaned back. Great, more hours passed. He was given food, monitored, eventually taken for scans, blood work, psychological tests. He answered everything honestly. Even the embarrassing questions. 3 days in, Wynn returned. You're clean, no anomalies, no implants, you're just intuitive. Thanks, you'll be released, but with conditions. I figured. You won't speak of this, you'll be monitored remotely. And you'll be moved to a location of our choosing. Witness protection, something like that. Erik stood. Okay, but one question. Wynn waited. Who built this place? She didn't answer immediately. Then, not us, he nodded. Fair enough. They drove him out under cover of darkness. The hill resealed. The SUV was waiting. His map had been returned, now folded neatly. As he got in, Wynn handed him a folder. What's this? Your new assignment. You're being recruited. I'm not military. We don't need military. We need people who see what others miss. He opened the folder. Inside, coordinates, a passport, and a letter marked provisional clearance. He looked at her. You serious? Wynn smiled faintly. You found a base no one else could. That counts for something. Erik started the engine. All right. Let's see what else I can find before lunch. The air inside the transport was dry and cool, humming with a faint vibration that settled in Erik's molars. He sat alone in the back, facing a wall with no windows, no markings, just the occasional flicker of green from a recessed panel. It had been 3 days since he'd left the Utah site. No clocks, no sunlight, just scheduled meals and an occasional voice asking if he was still stable. Now he was in motion again. The vehicle slowed, tilted slightly, and stopped. A soft hiss, then the door opened. 2 figures waited outside. One was human, maybe in his 50s, dressed in a dark utility suit with no insignia. The other wasn't. Stand slowly, the man said, not unkindly. Follow us. Erik did. The alien, tall, with copper-toned skin that shimmered faintly, watched him with eyes shaped like elongated teardrops, unblinking. They walked through a corridor that curved deliberately, as if whoever designed it didn't trust straight lines. Lights pulsed gently along the floor, guiding them deeper. The air smelled faintly of eucalyptus and something metallic. After several turns, they reached a chamber that resembled a medical theater, walls of soft silver, a central reclining chair, and an array of instruments arranged around it like petals. Sit, the man said. Rick glanced at the alien. Is he the doctor? The man corrected. And no. She's here to observe. The chair adjusted as he sat, conforming to his shape. The man placed a small device on Erik's temple. It beeped once, then began to vibrate gently. What's that? Checking. Cortical alignment. We want to make sure your brain's still behaving like a human brain. I haven't grown any weird ridges, if that's what you're asking. No, the man said. But we're still figuring out how you walked into a containment site by accident and didn't fry your central nervous system. The alien made a low sound, somewhere between a purr and a hum. Erik glanced at her. She say something. She said your neuroelectric profile doesn't make sense, the man replied, adjusting another device, in a good way. That's comforting. A panel overhead flickered to life, displaying a translucent readout of Erik's vitals. Everything looked normal if slightly elevated on the stress indicators. All right, the man said, tapping the screen. You're metabolizing stress hormones too quickly. You didn't take anything before this transport. Just a ginger chew I found in my jacket, Erik said. Why? Your adrenal response is flattening faster than it should. You're adapting too efficiently. I'm not trying to impress anyone. The alien stepped closer, lifting a long, jointless arm. Her fingers hovered over Erik's forehead, not touching. The air got warmer around his face. Should I be worried? She's reading your thermal field, the man replied. It's a non-invasive scan. It'll feel like standing too close to a toaster. Accurate. After a moment, the alien withdrew her hand and turned toward a recessed panel in the wall. Her fingers traced a pattern through the air, and a new display emerged, symbols Erik couldn't read, slowly rotating. She says your autonomic rhythm is exhibiting micro-oscillations normally associated with deep space acclimation, the man said, watching the projection. Which makes no sense. I've only ever been on a plane, once, to Omaha, the man didn't laugh. She thinks you're the result of a statistical anomaly. Is that alien for lucky idiot? The man tapped a few keys on the medical console. Close enough. The chair clicked twice, then reclined further. A soft band extended from either side and wrapped gently around Erik's wrists. Okay, now I'm slightly less comfortable. Standard protocol. We're going to stimulate your thalamus and see how your visual cortex responds. Do I need to bite down on anything? No, just tell me if you start seeing anything that isn't the room. The panel above shifted to a pale green hue. A low-frequency hum filled the room, and Erik's vision blurred at the edges. For a second, he thought he saw a shape circular, moving, but it vanished as quickly as it came. I saw something, he said. Like a wheel, the alien turned quickly, her fingers moving again. The display she'd opened now showed a changing pattern, concentric rings, pulsing in sync with Erik's heart rate. The man narrowed his eyes. You shouldn't be able to perceive that pattern. I didn't mean to. No, I mean you physically shouldn't. That's a waveform used in long-range communication relays. It's not visible to the human eye. The chair powered down slowly. The restraints released, the lights dimmed. All right, the man said, stepping back. You're done here for now. What does it mean? No idea. But someone's going to want to talk to you about it. The alien gave a short nod and exited first. The man motioned for Erik to follow. They took a different corridor, this time narrower, with low ceilings and no visible lighting. The walls glowed gently, just enough to see. After several minutes of silence, Erik broke it. Do you ever get used to this place? No, comforting. They reached a chamber with a curved glass wall overlooking what appeared to be a hangar. Inside, 4 ships hovered silently above the floor, sleek, asymmetrical, and completely unlike anything Erik had seen in any movie. A woman stood waiting near the window, arms crossed behind her back. She was tall, with silver-threaded hair pulled into a tight braid. Her uniform was dark green, edged with a braided insignia that looked more geological than military. You're the civilian, she said when Erik approached. I'm told that's my defining trait. She studied him. You've set off a chain reaction of questions no one's prepared to answer. That's either very dangerous or very useful. I prefer useful. We're going to test that. You'll be assigned to a field team as an embedded observer. I'm not trained for that. You're not here because of training. You're here because your brain did something it wasn't supposed to. We want to see what happens when it's exposed to more variables. Erik looked at the ships. You sending me up in one of those? No, not yet. First we see how you perform in a controlled external environment. She handed him a wristband. It was matte black with a single blue dot in the center. Wear this at all times. It monitors exposure, vitals, and location. What's the blue dot for? If it turns red, stop doing whatever you're doing. Got it. You'll be working with Unit 6. They're not human. You'll meet them at the surface site in the next rotation. Until then, get some rest. She turned and left without waiting for a reply. Later, when he was escorted to his quarters, a compact room with a low bed, a recessed wash station, and a console embedded in the wall, he sat down and stared at the wristband. The blue dot pulsed once. He didn't sleep much. The cot was comfortable enough, but his brain wouldn't stop replaying the strange shapes he'd seen during the scan. Just before dawn, or what passed for it here, the wall console chimed and displayed a message. Report to Departure Bay 2. Unit 6 awaiting. He dressed in the gray utility suit left for him and followed the pulsing floor lights to the bay. The air smelled of ozone and something floral he couldn't place. Unit 6 was already assembled. There were 4 of them. None looked remotely alike. One was covered in segmented plates that clicked faintly when it moved. Another floated just above the ground, its body a translucent mass of shifting color. The third had long limbs and skin like polished obsidian. The last looked vaguely humanoid, but its eyes were vertical slits and its hands had too many joints. The obsidian one stepped forward. You are Erik Kael. I am, and you are. You may call me Vess. That is the closest approximation. Nice to meet you, Vess. The floating one shimmered, then spoke through a small device attached to its side. Your presence is statistically improbable. Yeah, I'm getting that a lot. Vess gestured to a small skimmer platform. We depart now. Erik stepped onto the platform, trying not to stare too long at any one of them. The platform rose smoothly and glided toward the far end of the bay. A panel opened, revealing a tunnel sloping upward. As they ascended, Erik turned to Vess. What exactly are we doing out there? Observing a Category 3 anomaly on the surface. You will catalog your perceptions. We will compare them to our own. That's it, for now. The tunnel ended in a clearing under a pale sky. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over jagged rock formations. In the center of the clearing floated a sphere, perfectly still, its surface rippling like water despite no wind. Erik stepped closer. The wristband pulsed as he approached. What is it? Vess tilted its head. We do not know. That is why you are here. The sphere didn't make a sound. No hum, no vibration, not even static in the air. It just hovered, impossibly still, casting a faint reflection of everything around it like a bubble with depth. Erik circled it slowly, careful not to break the invisible perimeter Vess had gestured toward. That thing's not moving, Erik said, watching his own face distort in the reflection. But I swear it's breathing. It is not expelling or consuming atmosphere, Vess replied. However, the surface tension fluctuates in response to nearby neural activity. Wait, it's reacting to thoughts, not thoughts, patterns. Erik crouched, tilting his head. I don't even know what that means. The translucent member of Unit 6 unnamed, but responding to the designation 10 drifted closer, releasing a faint color pulse that shimmered blue and yellow. That is a request, Vess explained. 10 wishes to sync your cortical rhythm to the field. It may provoke a reaction from the object. Will it hurt? There is no recorded pain threshold in previous trials. However, you are the first human to attempt it. Of course I am, Erik muttered, then stood. All right. Let's see what the floating mystery marble wants. 10 extended a filament, just one, thin and slow moving, and touched the band on Erik's wrist. The blue dot dimmed, then brightened again. Erik felt a faint warmth behind his eyes, like he'd stood up too fast. The sphere shifted. It didn't rotate exactly, more like the reflection inside it folded. 1 second, his warped face stared back, the next, the image inverted, showing something else entirely, a structure. Tall, geometric, and unfamiliar. It was gone a second later. Did you see that? Erik said quickly. No visual change was detected from our angle, Vess replied. It showed me something. A building, I think, way taller than anything I've seen, but it didn't look like a city. It was too orderly. 10 pulsed a dark green color. That is confirmation, Vess said. The structure you perceived is not native to this planet. So it's showing me alien stuff now, possibly recognizing a compatible cognitive pattern. The sphere appears to require intuitive interpretation, not analytical logic. That would explain why it's not talking to any of you. Vess paused. Perhaps. Erik stepped back, the band on his wrist cooling. So what now? You tag it, bag it, and fly it back to your secret vault. The object cannot be moved. It repels all forms of kinetic interaction. Then why keep studying it? Because it wasn't here last cycle. It appeared without atmospheric disruption or spatial displacement. That should not be possible. 10 drifted in a slow orbit around the sphere, releasing another pulse. This time, the air around the object shimmered slightly, just a flicker, like heat haze. Erik squinted. There it is again. Something's inside. I think I saw the wristband buzzed and turned purple. Step back, Vess said immediately. Erik obeyed, moving behind a low ridge. 10 retreated as well, its form dimming. Did I do something wrong? The object's field entered a volatile state, Vess explained. Your neural signature may have been misinterpreted as a command. I didn't tell it anything. You may have thought something in a sequence that mimicked its activation protocol. I was just wondering if it was hollow. That is sufficient. The sphere abruptly rose 10 feet into the air, then dropped back to its original position without a sound. Vess remained still. This is new. I didn't mean to poke the cosmic bear, Erik said, but maybe it likes questions. You are not permitted further interaction at this time. We will analyze the response parameters. Probably wise. They returned to the skimmer platform. 10 remained behind, its form anchoring in place as 2 other members of Unit 6 arrived from the tree line, one resembling a coiled vine in motion, the other a glimmering biped with no visible face. Back underground, Erik was escorted to a smaller observation chamber. He sat under a broad scanner while a technician, human, silent, and visibly exhausted, ran a series of tests. All non-invasive, mostly imaging and neuroresponse tracking. After 15 minutes, the technician handed him a sealed drink pouch and left without a word. Wynne appeared in the doorway next. Drink that, she said, not sitting. It'll flush the residual field interference. Why does it taste like metal and regret? It's suppressing volatile memory indexing. You're lucky you didn't trigger a full cortical echo. Is that as bad as it sounds? You'd be speaking in reverse and drooling for 2 days. Erik took another sip, grimacing. So I'm guessing this wasn't how today was supposed to go. You were supposed to observe. Not engage. I didn't volunteer, it just reacted. You're still the only variable we can't model. Erik looked at her. You ever think maybe I'm not the weird one that's been considered? He leaned back. I saw a building inside the sphere, I know, Vess confirmed it. We're rendering a partial reconstruction now, based on your visual cortex logs. Was it Earth-based? No, but the geometry matches structures found in a sealed archive on Cauldrus 8. That the same Cauldrus you said was off-limits. I didn't say it was off-limits. You weren't cleared to know it existed, right? She handed him a small tablet. On it, a rough 3D model rotated slowly. The structure he'd seen, a tall, angular tower with sides that folded in on themselves, looked even stranger in full render. That's what I saw, Erik said. What's it for? We're not sure. But if it's inside the sphere, it means the object is either a conduit or a container, or a projector. Wynne paused. Explain. What if the sphere's not showing us what's inside, but what it wants someone to see? Maybe it's a lure. That's a possibility. Erik stood. Can I see it again? No, the field's unstable. You'll be reassigned. To what? There's a containment site in the Canadian Shield, less volatile, more controlled. You'll assist with harmonic mapping. I'm not exactly a harmonic anything. You see patterns. That's enough. He followed her through a narrow corridor lined with thin lights that pulsed in pairs. The further they walked, the more the air changed denser, cooler, and filled with the faint scent of mineral dust. They stopped outside a reinforced door. Wynne keyed in a sequence. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, 5 beings waited, none of them familiar. Each wore a dark uniform with a single silver stripe across the chest, and none of them blinked when Erik stepped in. One had skin that shifted color with each movement. Another had no mouth, only a series of slits down the neck. Wynne gestured. This is Liaison Group 4. You'll work with them until further notice. The tallest of the group, gray-skinned, eyes like polished stone, approached and extended a hand with too many knuckles. Erik shook it. "I'm Erik. I guess I'm the new guy." "You are the unexpected. That is acceptable," Wynne nodded. "You're clear to begin." The door closed behind her. Erik exhaled slowly. "All right. What's first on the agenda?" The gray one gestured to a wall console. "There is a signal buried beneath the northern ice. We will trace its harmonics. And you think I can help? You interpret chaos as structure. That is rare." Erik glanced at the console. It displayed a waveform he'd never seen before, jagged, non-linear, repeating with irregular gaps. He tilted his head. Something about the shape looked familiar. "Wait," he said. "Those breaks, they're not random. That's a prime interval sequence. It's skipping by sevens." The gray being blinked slowly. "You see that?" "Yeah, it's not noise, it's a countdown." They all turned toward him at once. The gray being stepped closer, voice lower than before. "A countdown to what?" Erik stared at the waveform. "I guess we're about to find out." But nothing happened. The signal held steady. The countdown didn't change. It wasn't ticking down, it was frozen. A loop. A marker. He looked again. The pattern traced something, an outline, a shape. "Oh, it's not a countdown, it's a location." The gray being nodded once. "Then we will go there." "No," Erik said. "You won't need to. I've already seen it." He pointed to the console. "That's the same structure the sphere showed me." The room fell quiet, the gray being tilted its head. "Then your role is concluded." Erik blinked. "That's it. You have given us the pattern. The signal is no longer silent." The console shut off. The door opened. Wynne waited outside. "You're done," she said. "We'll take it from here." Erik stepped out, slightly dazed. "So what happens now? You go back." "To what?" "Whatever you want. You're free." He stared at her, searching for the catch. "There's no trick," Wynne said. "You've already done more than anyone expected. The rest is up to us." She handed him a small card, one side blank, the other showing a single number. "What's this? If you ever see something strange again, call." Erik pocketed the card. "You really think I will?" "I think you won't be able to help it." 3 days later, Erik was back in his apartment. Same couch, same half-dead plant, same creaky floorboard by the fridge. He opened a drawer in the kitchen, pulled out the old map, and stared at the faded X near Utah. Then he laughed once, folded it neatly, and slid it back inside. No need to go looking. He'd already found enough.